I'm Ross Clough. I am running for CD7, Congressional District 7 in Colorado. And today we'd like to talk to you briefly about messaging and our goal with our campaign. And it's basically to give the power back to the people on decisions. And that's been a problem for decades, that representatives aren't really representing. They're just following a party line and following party positions and not really doing what's in the best interest of the district that they're representing. So that's what I will be working on changing. And a lot of that has to do with messaging and making people feel comfortable with the issues and getting the input of what the voters think, and then using that information to go forward.
And so who do we have with us tonight, Ross? Looks like a return guest.
We have Orion. He is the chair of the Libertarian Party of Jefferson County.
Hello again.
Orion.
Hello, Orion.
Hey, so yeah, it's good to be here. I was just gonna say to your point, Ross, like there's so many things that we can do to get these decisions back into the hands of the people. I mean, a great idea is to actually utilize this technology that we have. Everybody has a phone, everybody has internet, basically. And so we can get people's inputs. We can throw polls out there to each thing that you're voting on. We can get their feedback on it, either individually or from the grassroots campaigns that come from that, and really make educated decisions each time we go about this.
Yeah, that sounds really good. I mean, a part of the problem with the representatives we see today is they just don't get the information out there, so they might not know what the district's viewpoints are, unless there's some private polls that happen, but that's rare. I mean, you don't see that very often.
Well,
So
the problem with polling, Ross, too, is that they're not asking the right questions, right? Polls are yes or no, and they're not expansive polls, are they?
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of times these polls will just have a yes or no or a for or against type thing on it. And a lot of times there's a lot of issues out there where you have more than two different options, or two different things that you see on the issue, two different positions.
Right. And with libertarians, we actually do a different type of polling, because we have things like ranked choice voting. So we don't have just yes or no, because we understand that people are, complex. And so yes or no doesn't always answer the question. We want to know, we know that people are more nuanced than that. And we want to get those nuances down when we collect poll data, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. But the details are important. And a lot of times people forget about them, and yeah, they're really crucial. They can make a difference between public support for something or not, or not public support, and it could be just a couple of details on how something is implemented that make the difference.
And so, some of these things that you're voting on, I mean, it's like 400 to 600 pages per bill, right?
Oh yeah, it is. They are long, and unfortunately, the readability of some of these bills is not that great. So that's definitely something that could use a lot of improvement, and it makes it tough for everybody. I mean, the members of Congress, the people reading it. It's just, I don't know. It kind of looks like they used a word processor back from the 1980s or something when they're putting those out.
But that's why we have somebody like you, right? Because if we're going to elect somebody to Congress, this is something that we have to really keep in mind, is that when you're electing somebody to Congress, you don't want to elect somebody who's good at shaking hands, right? You want to elect somebody who actually knows how to read these kind of documents. And that's where you come in, right, Ross? Because you actually do know how to read these documents and comb through them for the details, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's basically, his codes are, I mean, they're laws, and they work like regulations, but they're actually laws. And they are pretty detailed. And I basically, my job right now is I go through regulations and see if something's complying with them or not. And if it's complying with them, we approve it. If it's not, we say, these are the things it's not complying with, and they can turn it back in with those changes. And then, so it's a pretty straightforward type thing. But so yeah, that's what I do for a living. Yeah, these bills that come in, it's even though the readability of them is not great. I mean, they're not the easiest things to read, but that's what I.
Well, they're not the easiest thing to read for me, but they're a lot easier for you to read, right? Because it's something that falls under your expertise and you're good at this. I'm not good at it, but you're good at it.
Yeah, I am good at it. The other thing that's in them is a lot of numbers. That's something I'm good at too. So they're especially the spending bills. They're just loaded with numbers. So yeah,
and that's something that Congress does, right? That's one of your mandates in Congress is spending.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's
right. And we need people to know how to handle spending. We need people to know how to crunch numbers and to actually translate that into real life data, how that really is going to affect all of us, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Another thing is a lot of times they'll just have a number and you don't know exactly how it's going to be used. Sometimes it's kind of vague on the details. So that's the kind of thing where you can ask the questions up front, be like, okay, I see the spending thing here. What's it going towards, and that sort of thing. So yeah.
So I had an idea for you, Ross. Like, let me know what you think about this. So it's like, there's these super long bills, and there are many sections to them. Sometimes those sections tie together. Sometimes they're just random amendments that put spending from lobbying and stuff. So it's like, with the trust of your voters, after doing all this polling and actually listening to them, I feel like you gain some resources. So what I would want to do with those resources is, get these groups together, and just like high school, like a book report, have each of these groups take on one section of that bill, really analyze it, and then, sit down with you, discuss a little bit. And then, because it doesn't take a short amount of time to pass these bills. So I'm like, maybe a week. So like each day we put out a 15-minute video explaining each part of the bill. And what that does is it keeps people intrigued. They're like, okay, I understand this part, but what comes next? What else is in it? So it's like, we have this mini series. We're sitting down with you. It could be live, it could be recorded, whatever. And then we just discuss it that way. How does that sound to you?
Yeah, that's a great idea. That way, because yeah, if you have a whole bunch of different topics, and unfortunately they're not always related on these bills, it's best just to break it down and be like, okay, do you support this part of it? And then we get the next part, do you support this part of it? And then you just go through that way.
So what would happen if we agreed, or maybe with the first couple parts, and then there's something that came up that we didn't agree with? What would you do?
I mean, I think there's two different ways we can handle that. One is we can be, okay, let's try to get that part of it eliminated. Be like, our CD7 does not support this part of the bill. Try to float an amendment to remove it. And hopefully I can, if I can get enough other members of Congress to think the same thing, we can get that removed. And we could always be like, look, we don't want to, I mean, this part of the bill is really controversial, and we don't want to hold up these other things that are okay or good based on one bad section. So let's just remove that one section, and then we can tackle that one by itself, because these other things are really important. I mean, it might be whatever, transportation or whatever, but we don't want to hold those up. But this one is just really controversial, and CD7 is not supporting it. So I'd have to vote no on this bill, even though it has some good things in it. And
well, doesn't it give you some power though? I mean, CD7, I'm thinking of like, this, if you bring in different groups together to discuss and debate a bill, and they find an area where there's a different amount of, controversy where they just cannot agree, I would think that it would give CD7 a lot of power to walk back into Congress and say, look, we disagree, and here's where our fundamental level of disagreement is. And to walk back in and say, look, this is where my district has sat down and talked it out together without, partisanship, anger, but we just generally disagree here. And say, this is where we disagree. Go back to your district and find out where they disagree. And maybe they disagree on the same points of it. And it becomes a talking point for all of America, not just for CD7. I think the problem is that when we have disagreements, we just, the group that's in power says, well, so sad, too bad. And they just move forward without coming forward and saying, well, wait a minute, maybe we should just sit down and find out if everybody has the same fundamental disagreement. And if everybody does have this disagreement, let's figure out if that disagreement can be reached by a compromise, or if maybe because of that disagreement, we need to put it on the table and walk away from it and try to figure it out later, and then move forward with the parts that everybody does agree on. But we can use CD7 as a role model to other states and congressional districts on how to work out problems instead of just having the power side ignore them.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's likely that there's a lot of different other districts in the country that would have similar viewpoints to CD7. And that's one thing I could bring up is I could say, here's our polling data, and it's, whatever the percent is, it's 38% in support or something, way under 50%. And I bet that if you poll your congressional district, you're going to find some similar type numbers. So this part of the legislation is a loser the way it's written. And we could look at compromises and see if that helps. That'd be one possibility. Maybe there's a certain part of it that's really bad or something like that.
And when we say polling, we mean honest polling. We don't mean that yes, no skewed polling that gets the results that you want. We mean libertarian type polling, where we have ranked choice data polling, and where you get a chance to actually offer in your own opinion too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. One way that could work is if it's a spending thing, you could have like a multiple choice type thing where they choose the right amount, that type of thing. So most issues there's more than just two different viewpoints.
I want to live in a world where, each affiliate, whether it be county or state or whatever, like say the Libertarian Party or just any other movement, can write letters or, make video reports, whatever, give those to you, and you sit in front of Congress and make every single congressman and woman listen to that. Instead of just debating over the bill or whatever, who's right or wrong, let's actually listen to the people. And I feel like you have the power to make them listen to that. So that's the world I want to live in.
Oh my gosh, I love that idea. Can you imagine that if we could propose something like that, where we actually would have like a genuine listening session for a bill, where if they, allow constituents to give like 2-minute clips, and then and let them actually debate the bill with Congress. That would actually be a great thing to propose, Ross.
Yeah, that would be really, that's one thing that's missing in the United States Congress right now is the committee hearings. There's basically no public testimony unless you're actually picked by Congress to testify. Now the state of Colorado does it differently. They do have a public testimony on every single, actually there'll be two, there's two on every single bill that gets passed, because there'll be one for the House and one for the Senate in Colorado, but that's not the case at federal. So if there's a way to do that, that would be huge.
Well, we could actually figure out a way to do that. As we're sitting here talking, I'm thinking, there is a way to do it, because C-SPAN could be brought into that, because C-SPAN goes into break and into recess. You could actually make deal with C-SPAN, that while you're on break and while you're on recess, on that is to see if C-SPAN would play a montage of video clips of public testimony on that could be heard, so that people could actually hear the testimony, and so could Congress, and they could listen to it while they're on break. So I mean, just thinking things out loud on that one.
Good idea. And then I guess you just rotate the district. So it might be
Yeah.
like CD7 one week, and then it switches to CD4 or whatever, and they just, yeah, it's definitely better than what we got now, which is very little
Nothing.
public input. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, some public input's better than none for sure. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So with that being said, so let's talk about how voters can be confident that once you get elected, you're going to be an independent voice for them, and you're going to represent all of them. Because what confidence do the voters have that you're not going to walk in and be a shill for the Libertarian Party?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. First of all, if you look at the two big parties right now, the way they're organized is they have either a House Majority Leader or a House Minority Leader that's basically in charge of what's going on, and they're in charge of committee assignments and all those sorts of things for their party. So basically what we have going on now is those individuals.
Well, hold on, Ross, I'm going to stop you there, because everybody knows that Libertarians don't have any power in Congress or the Senate, so you don't have to explain any of that to us. What we want to know is, once you get into Congress, how do you stop the Libertarian Party from being in your ear and telling you how to vote and do everything? I mean, I get it. You're not going to be in power, as far as controlling the Senate or the House or anything else like that. But Libertarian Party, you walk into Congress and you have the Libertarian Party. How do you stop them from whispering in your ear? I mean, what protection does the voter have that that's not happening?
I mean, basically what I would say is, if I'm getting peppered with a bunch of stuff from the, I don't know, National Party or whatever, what I would do is I would say, look, my job as a representative, it's not to follow a party platform or something like that. It's to represent the people of the district, and it's to get accurate information on what their positions are and then represent their positions. So that's how I would handle that, and it is possible that could happen, but
what could happen? That the Libertarian National Party could tell you what to do and how to vote?
No, that they could try to, but it wouldn't work, because.
Well, why wouldn't it work? I mean, I'm always going to play devil's advocate on this. People don't trust politicians, and they don't trust politicians because politicians are controlled by political parties. So what is the guarantee that you're not going to be controlled by a political party?
Well, the reason is LP. Well, I mean, LP National has no control over what I'm doing. And same thing with the state party. And what my job is to actually represent the people. So if they whispered something, I would say, look, first of all, you don't have any control over what I vote on, and two is I'm voting on the interests of the residents of the district. And that's not necessarily going to follow a Libertarian or any other party platform. So that's what I tell them, and that's what a representative's job is to follow what the constituents want, and that's almost never going to follow exactly what any political platform is going to say.
So Orion, you're the chair of the Jefferson County Libertarian Party. How much autonomy do you have? I mean, because what Ross says sounds good, but people don't trust political parties.
Yeah, I mean, we are an affiliate, so we use, I guess I'll describe it like this: we use the brand of the Libertarian Party, as does the state party of Colorado. They use the brand of the National Party, but that's really just to kind of have a coalition of members and resources. It's not necessarily to have a coalition of ideas or an agenda. I mean, what we do at the county meetings is we don't look at the national news first. We always start at the local news, like, hey, what's happening in Jefferson County that we can address now? And because that's where we are, that's where we have the most power. A good example was during COVID, when we had all those health board meetings that we could show up to and give people information about. Like, we really did a number on that, and I think it helped, and because we did reverse a few votes there. So yeah, we're always local first, and that's how I think the way government works. That's the way how you build strong communities, is looking at the micro problems in your community and then building up from there to hopefully build a state or a national resolution.
Okay, well, so when you say, I'm going to stay on this for a second, because again, people don't trust political parties. When you say we're always local first, that indicates that there's a second. So does that mean that that there's a state second and a national third? I mean, so where does the influence begin when it comes to state and national politics?
Gotcha. Good call out. When I said that, I meant that it's like we have these state issues that are affecting the local community, and they're providing issues. National, obviously, are providing issues into that community, but since we have little control over that, well, that's why we put them second and third. When it comes to collating our resources and our people at the state or the federal national level, that's where we kind of make a tactic to use our influence, hopefully in Congress and wherever else, to bring up these local issues, just like I described earlier to Ross. Like, okay, instead of having like one citizen write to Ross, to the congressman, then we have the party do it. And what that does is that this is an established political party that has understanding of the issues, and it's like it brings more power and more fear into the opposing politicians. They're like, oh my gosh, there's a whole political party against this issue. But it's never controlled by the party itself. It's always from that bottom-up approach. Okay.
So this raises a continual problem of messaging, because we have this platform, this campaign has said, we do not adhere or stand by a certain senatorial candidate in another state's messaging. And we've tried to explain that their messaging is completely separate than our messaging, and that we are not on the same page as this. And some people have come back to us and said that's not possible because you're both part of the same party. And we tried to explain to them that the way the Libertarian Party is set up is that nobody is part of the same brand on the Libertarian Party, that we are uniquely uniquely set up party, and that because of that we share the name Libertarian, but we do not all we do not share the same ideas. Would anybody like to take that statement and run with that, or would you like to correct me?
Yeah, I can add a little bit to that. I do agree with what you're saying, but I'll have a couple of examples. I have been to several national conventions, and it is extremely rare that you'll have a platform plank that everybody agrees on. I think I've seen it once in 3 conventions. So I mean, so that kind of shows the difference in views, and there's a lot of difference in views in the Libertarian Party. So that's just one example, and there's more. But every single convention, it's the same thing. It has to be a pretty straightforward issue as far as for it to get unanimous support. It doesn't happen very often.
Well, it's not just a difference in views, it's a difference in it's a difference in techniques and approaches also, correct? I mean, we have, again, I see Orion shaking your head. Would you like to say something about techniques?
Yeah, I think in the Libertarian Party, we form a lot of grassroots movements, and we don't necessarily form like, you know, caucuses or committees on those. Like those become their own separate movements that do their own messaging and basically become their own party on that one topic. And so it's like you can be in the Libertarian Party and be like a part of, you know, many of those.
Right. And so like some states, some counties, some, you know, some affiliates, they are very hands-on. They are very one-on-one. They are out there with the people every day. And that is the way they message. Others are very much technology. They run things very technologically. That is what they are comfortable, and that is what their base is comfortable with. Like, for example, this campaign is very much a computer-driven campaign. But the reason why is Ross is a civil engineer, and this is what he is the most comfortable with. And we have candidates that are running, and they are very much handshakers, and that is what they are comfortable with. But we don't have a one-size-fits-all in the party, and we actually don't even have a strategy session where we sit down with everybody and tell everybody how to run a campaign, do we?
Yeah, that's exactly right. There is, yeah, there's very little. I mean, it's basically, you have to do whatever kind of messaging or campaign you want to.
Right, and national doesn't come in and tell us, or nor does state tell us how to run our campaigns. We run them completely independent, which brings up an interesting, can be a dilemma or an advantage, which is if national says something that helps our campaign, or if another state affiliate does something that helps our campaign or does something that hurts our campaign. It has to be taken into consideration that they are doing this completely independent and without notice to us, correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Whatever messaging any of the other LP affiliates or segments do, it is nothing to do with what we're doing.
And it's always a surprise to everybody. Yeah. Everybody finds out at the same time the public finds out.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. Sometimes it's later than the public.
Yes, no coordination here.
Yeah, sometimes we hear from a friend first before we even knew about it. So that happens too.
That's another cool thing we do at the Jeffco meetups is you know, we always have a lot of cool like guest speakers that, you know, I think when you boil it down, a lot of it does go to like the issue of freedom and liberty. But I mean, they're like sometimes really out there ideas. Like we had a couple speakers come a few weeks ago talking about medicinal like mushrooms and stuff. And it's like, okay, well, let's take a stab at this and see if we can use our resources again in the Libertarian Party to get this to Congress and see if, you know, maybe this issue that came to us from the community can be addressed by those in power.
You know what? And let's stay on that for a second, because that is something that I believe that is the state party sponsoring that, or are they behind that, or is that just a grassroots with affiliates?
Just with affiliates. They've only talked to a couple county affiliates. Yeah.
Okay. See, this is a really great. See, this is a great example of the state party isn't behind this you know, proposal, but the county affiliates are getting behind it. And I don't know how many how many of our congressional candidates. I know Ross hasn't taken a stand on it one way or the other, but I think some of our, like, I know Dan has. And I don't know if Eric has, but I don't know how many of our congressional candidates have taken public stands on this. But again, see, that is a great example of the independence of the Libertarian candidates, even in this state.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That is, there's a lot of issues that people have taken stances on, or they might later, after they research it a little bit more, come up with this statement. So yeah, that's a really important point. And there's a lot of issues out there, and there's a lot of things that people could have slightly different opinions on, or those sorts of things.
And that's
I just give a shout out. Oh, Ryan, you have great speakers at the Jefferson County affiliates meeting.
Oh yeah, we try. I think that's a great point though, Ross. Like after research, people like make a decision on this. And so maybe the point of the party isn't necessarily to facilitate or come up with an agenda, but actually be a place where people can get together with similar ideas, so there's not like endless debate, right? And actually just get educated about these issues. Like maybe that's the whole purpose of it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I definitely learned a lot from both your last guest speakers. The one about the medicinal mushrooms, and then also one about Julian Assange. Learned a lot on that one too. So yeah, they're great. Definitely keep up the good work on those guest speakers.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the point of the Libertarian Party is to keep open debates, is to allow, is to keep, I go back to our big tent theory, is to keep that tent big so that all ideas can fit into it. And so we allow that ability to let more ideas in. And so because of that, we don't stop people from thinking, and we don't tell people how to think, which, by the way, hurts us sometimes. Because we will get associated with people that we disagree with, and people say, well, aren't you like them? And it's like, no, we're not. But they have to say that they're not like us also, and I'm sure they don't like that either.
I think you'd agree with me that like at any libertarian event, it doesn't really matter what's going on at the stage, but it's like most of them are spent talking. And the weird thing, it's not like trying to network or, well, it is, but like not trying to make backdoor deals or whatever, lobby. It's really just people debating all the time. So those events just go on forever.
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah, it could be pretty difficult to sit in some of those for sure. But yeah, another thing that's important is to give people the tools they need to make informed decisions. And part of that is when you see a huge 700-page bill come in front of somebody, most people are going to be like, look, I work 40 to 60 hours a week or whatever. I don't have time to read this novel of a bill that comes every week or whatever. But the way you do those is you split it up into manageable parts. And so people can be like, okay, this is what's included in this. And that way people can actually know what's going on and be like, this 700-page bill is a monster, but you can split it into 10 different parts that are very manageable. And then that way people including me can get their head around what's in it. And that's,
well, I'm gonna actually kind of do a bit of a obnoxious comment here, but if I elect you to Congress, that's your job. I mean, it's not my job to read a 500-page bill. That's actually your job to read it, and for you to find all of those, like points that to come back to me now and explain it to me, because you're right. I work 40, oh, I have 40 hours within my dreams. I work 60 hours a week. I don't have time to read a 500-page bill. I'm paying you to go there and do that. And if there's something I need to know, which there probably is, if it's a 500-page bill, they're burying something in there. I'm paying you with all your brains to go in there and find out what I need to know and then to summarize that for me.
They're not burying something, they're burying, it's just how many things are they burying in there?
Right. Yeah,
That's
and I
like
need you to go in there and find those needles in the haystack, and I need you to summarize that for me concisely, and in a way that I can understand it, because I'm not reading that. And I'm tired of being frustrated by Congress coming in and saying, well, I had, 1 day to read that bill, so forget it. I'm gonna vote on it and then I'm gonna read it. What? No.
Now, if there's an impossible task, so we'll bring that example up. You have the 10,000 page bill where they give you 1 day to read it. That's an impossible task. So that's a no vote. Nobody can read that. But if they give you a possible task, so that would be a 700 page bill in a week. That's not easy, but it's possible, and you just break it up. That is one where you break it up into parts, and then you find the needles in the haystack, and then that's where you do the polling. You have part 1, this is what it's doing. Part 2, this is what it's doing. And then you can actually see if the people support it or not. And you have to break it up, because a lot of times there's 6 or 7 totally different topics that are in there. And that's the only way to figure out if there's support for it or not, is breaking it up into parts.
And then so, and I get all that, but I want to keep bringing this back to you being a libertarian, because libertarians, seem to be against a lot of stuff in the government. And if you're going there as a congressman, as a libertarian, there's this automatic assumption that you're going to be against a lot of stuff in the government. So what protection do the people in your district have sending a libertarian congressman to Congress?
Oh, okay. So that's a really good question. Yeah, obviously there is a lot of things I'm personally against, and there's a lot of things I'm personally for. And then it comes down to gauging what the public support level is, and then also gauging if something's constitutional. And if something has public support and is constitutional, I would have to vote for it. So even if I'm not, don't personally support it, so that is something that could happen. So let's stay on this for a second, because you're a libertarian, and if you don't personally support it, aren't your libertarian friends going to come after you, and blog sites are going to come after you, and they're going to call you a statist? That doesn't bother you? See, I see Orion laughing, because Orion knows exactly what I'm talking about, and so do you, Ross. And see, the people who aren't libertarians don't know this, but this is what libertarians do. The minute you do something that they hate, they are vicious, and people don't know how vicious libertarians get. Right? I'm going to throw this over to Orion. Right, Orion?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to pass anything really in the libertarian view. So I think with reading these bills, there is a level of interpretation that you have to give when you give your summary, when you talk to people about it. You have to be like, okay, I know this doesn't sound like it will be a good thing, but here's where I'm coming from. Here's what I've heard from other people. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think another part of it is on these really complex bills, if people actually see some of these needles in the haystack, they might be like, well, I totally support this part of it, but this part, you're right, it's completely bad. And then how you have to handle a split bill where part of it's good, let's say part of it's excellent, no issues with it, and then the other part's complete garbage. You have to vote no on it unless it's amended. Or if
wait, I'm going to stop you again, because I'm going to talk like a libertarian, because you and I both know, and Orion knows this, no libertarian is going to like anything that increases government and that in any way increases spending. So if you have to vote on anything that increases government or increases spending, you are going to irritate every libertarian that voted for you. Right. I mean, so we're just going to put that on the table for everybody who's not a libertarian to know that. And if the people in CD7 tell you to do that, the libertarians' brains are going to explode.
Yeah.
Because they're going to say you're not a real libertarian.
Well, that's a really good point, and that is a concern for sure. But what I think is more likely to happen is we have seen so much spending the last couple of years. I think the people in CD7 are going to be like, we are just sick of all this spending.
But what if they're not? I'm going to keep telling you, devil, because what libertarians do, and this really is annoying, is what libertarians do is they like to live in libertarian world where once we take control, the whole world goes our way. And it doesn't. It never does. So we're going to pretend that the real world really exists and it doesn't go libertarian world. So what happens if CD7 says, to be honest with you, Ross, we want that boondoggle and we want it for our district. And we don't care if New York doesn't get the money, but doggone it, we want that money. We want that subsidy for our district. Vote for it. What do you do?
Yeah, and I guess I would. I mean, if it's constitutional, I would be stuck voting for something I don't like. So
okay, yeah. So that's that. By the way, that's a good and honest answer, and I respect that answer. Now, how do you reconcile that with being a libertarian? I mean, that's because that's where I think the point is of this now is because you have to reconcile that with being a libertarian. So what does that say about libertarians and being a libertarian? Because people are going to say, well, that goes against being a libertarian.
The thing is, if you're a representative, that's your first duty. So if the district, and there might be a really good reason why the district is supporting it. So that would have to go first, the interests of the district.
So what you're saying, I just want to make sure I hear what you're saying, because I'm going to keep interrupting you. So what you're saying is being a libertarian is your political party and you respect that. But if the people elect you, you have to respect their choice more than you respect your political party.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it could be like, okay, we've got a spending bill of whatever that's going to help some kind of industry that's in the district. And the libertarian view would obviously be, well, it's spending bill and some more spending. So it's no, and the people of the district might be like, well, we really need these jobs or that type of thing. Our economy isn't doing that great in this area and this would really help and all that kind of thing. And that would be an example, in the whole district's behind it, not just that area. That would be an example of that, yeah, it doesn't follow the libertarian viewpoint, but it's the district has spoken and they really want this this bill that has some spending in it. So that would be, I mean, it wouldn't be an easy situation, but yeah, you would have to put the district's interest first.
So no, actually, I think, yeah, go ahead, Orion, let you go.
Yeah, so I think this has another thing to do with technology and just transparency, right? It's like, okay, maybe the libertarians didn't agree with your choice on this, but it's like what you don't see a lot of is after each bill is passed, the congressperson coming back to their community and being like, here's why I voted on this bill. If you do like a release, like a press release, a video release, something like that, then I think you will gain respect of your libertarian comrades. And, you know, what more can they say? Like, he's got a good point.
Well, actually, what I was thinking too, Orion, is that this is actually the epitome of true anarchy, isn't it? Right? I mean, because libertarians believe in anarchy, and this is literally what it is that Ross is handing back government to the people. He's allowing them to make the decision, you know, and he is allowing them, despite his political beliefs, to choose their government. It's literally representative government. And by the way, Ross, I know that was a really hard answer for you because and you weren't expecting the question. So I respect the fact that you answered it honestly. That says a lot about your character, because I could actually see by the look on your face that you were really upset about that. But I respect that was a genuinely honest answer.
Yeah, I mean, those are always tough when you've got those kind of situations. But yeah, you've got to go with what the district wants. And part of your job is to give the people the information about the bill first, so they can actually make a good decision on what if it's something they want or not. Because if you just go into the Congress's website and pull up the 700-page bill, again, you have maybe 1% of the population that has enough time to read it. So that's where breaking something that's almost unreadable into something that everybody or almost everybody can easily read and understand is job number one. And then job number two is figuring out what the viewpoints are on all the parts of the legislation. And then once I get that information, I can figure out how to tackle it. And a lot of times it might be these parts are good, these parts aren't good. So
it's stopping the news media from controlling the narrative also. I mean, because what it sounds like is that you want to make sure that they get an unbiased page of what's really going on, and not a spin from either side of the pundits.
Yeah, and that is challenging to find right now.
It's impossible to find right now.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's impossible to find is because people are driven by their political parties. They're not driven by what is in the best interest of the people they represent. And that's what you just, with one of the, watching your face was one of the hardest, admissions for you to make, is that you were going to do what was the right thing for your district, even if it was at the expense of betraying your political party. That's a heck of a lot of integrity.
And I think I was just going to say, with that transparency, I think a lot of people will catch on with this before and after, like transparency and communication, where these bills are actually coming from, who's writing them, and why they're being written in the first place. Which libertarians are like, yeah, why are they being written in the first place? Like, people are going to understand where it's coming from, and maybe that'll create a shift where they come from the right place. People.
Right. Yeah. And it will, once things start getting honestly put out there, and once Ross starts honestly going through them and saying, look, I combed through this 500-page document and I found all this, which is good, but I found this one thing that is bad, which is kind of disturbing. And I want everybody to see that because it's buried in like page 398. And this doesn't make any sense. Everybody can look at that and say, well, no one knew this was here. Let's just take this out. And everybody starts fighting over taking out this obscure little piece. It kind of shines a very bright spotlight on, what the real purpose of that was. And so everybody can start looking at it and question it, not just in our district, but in other districts. And it starts making the process a whole lot more clearer for all of Americans.
Yep, that's definitely true. Another tool that we can utilize, and this would be more on really close legislation that's fairly evenly split, is we can have people actually rate, do like a ranked choice voting type thing, just to see exactly, is this a piece of legislation that a lot of people just can't stand, or are they kind of neutral on it? Is it one that a lot of people don't really have a strong opinion either way on it, or is it people that a lot of people are just completely support it, and then you have a bunch of people that are neutral on it? That type of thing is kind of important also. So I mean,
you just had the confused emoji.
Yeah, like we don't care either way.
No, not confused, completely
decide.
confused, just the, no, even know what this bill is about, and just hit the confused emoji.
Or, yeah, so we could get an idea like, okay, 50% can't stand this piece of legislation. And then we only have 10% that really like it. And then you got 40% that are kind of just neutral and don't care.
I'm just confused. Nobody has any idea what you lost me at herein.
That's really important info to know. And a regular poll usually doesn't get that kind of detail.
So this has been really interesting. Any final thoughts on anything that anybody wants to say? I'll start with you, Orion.
Yeah, I'm just kind of going over in my head like all these, recent legislations and how they could have been attacked differently if people actually knew what they were talking about. Like with the Inflation Reduction Act, I looked for like an hour for a summary just to understand what was in it. I couldn't find anything. So if we can make that happen, I'd be a very happy camper.
I found one that was okay after a while. I forget what organization had it, but it wasn't real detailed. It's just kind of like a brief, quick summary on it.
But do you really think organizations should be putting out summaries of bills? I mean, that's Congress's job. I think we aren't holding Congress to their jobs like they should. I mean, we shouldn't be having any special interest groups or anybody putting forth summaries of anything that Congress is doing. Congress should be putting forward neutral analysis of what they're doing.
I completely agree. Whether it comes from the Congressional Budget Office or whoever, should have, this is what we're doing. And the readability is a problem. And Congress should be the ones fixing it. I mean, one example is I was reading a IRS annual summary report, and the readability wasn't bad. I had no problem going through that really quick, finding everything I wanted to find out. And then you look at the piece of legislation that's going forward, and it is like a time warp back to the 1980s as far as the readability of the document. I mean, it doesn't even have a table of contents in it. It is just extremely difficult to read. So, I mean, we know the federal government can produce things that are readable.
Well, they actually have the Plain Language Act. I mean, so they're supposed to be writing this in plain language.
Yeah, it's I mean, generally the vocabulary isn't bad. It's just the whole formatting of it, the organization, just basic things like, I mean, a table of contents would help, just things like that. Like a summary, if it's a spending bill, this is the spending, this is where we're getting money from, that type of thing would be nice.
Well, hold on a second. Can I just say something about the document itself? Because Orion brought up a suggestion where we have like video clips of people actually discussing stuff. And I say this as somebody, again, my dyslexia is on the table, but reading is very difficult for me. It has always been very difficult for me. And it's something that I've struggled with. And it is, I'm an audible learner because of my dyslexia, it is easier for me to put on audio than visual, and I learn easier with audio. I do not understand why they just don't make these things available through audio, so that you can actually listen to them. I think sometimes, and maybe they do, I don't know, but I haven't seen them, and I would think that you literally, well, I actually have heard the audio, like some of like the congressional records and audio, but the audio is so horrible, you can't follow it. So I think they should get better at that group for the people that are visually impaired, the people who have dyslexia, and the people that cannot read. There's a whole group that gets left out of this.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, you have a bunch of people that either have really bad eyesight or blind, can't read for a variety of reasons, or have trouble reading. And if you have any type of reading issues, even people without any reading issues are going to struggle with a 700-page document. I mean, you either have to be an extremely fast reader or have a photographic memory to go through those. And most people can't. And me, I have to break it into parts. And I'll do this section, take a break, do another section, take a break, that sort of thing. If I try to go through a 700-page document at once, I'm not going to get it. It's just going to be a jumbled mess. So,
yeah. And I think of the current like generation too, like they want to just be swiping through their videos or Facebook, whatever. And they want to see these things pop up. And then it's like, okay, now they have the information, but then like, you know, we have the technology like, okay, comment your thoughts below, or, you know, to have a poll on it as well. And it's like, that's what the current generation wants with time and stuff. You know,
And
everyone's time is
interact,
valuable.
being able to interact with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And Congress needs to catch up with that. They need to know that we have long since passed the time of monologues. We are now into dialogues, and they have to adjust to that.
yeah, that's definitely well put for sure.
Yeah. So just as a closing thought, I just want to put out there, you know, for the people out there who have heard disturbing messaging, I want to address this, because it is the elephant in the room, that each campaign, each affiliate, each state, and even the national party, they have their own messaging. That is not our messaging. You know, Ross has his own messaging, just like Orion, you have your own messaging. And we don't control each other's messaging, and we are not a part of the messaging. So we ask that we do not, none of us get painted with each other's messaging, and that that if people would like to judge our campaign, and I say this our campaign, and Ross, Ryan, I'll let you say what you need to say about your affiliate, but we ask that people judge Ross's campaign by what Ross says about who he is and what his campaign believes in, not by anything that they may read about the Libertarian Party, by anything else. We try to stay above board with our beliefs. We do not believe in we do not believe in harassment. We do not believe in lowbrow. And we are not, we do not believe in edgelording or shock jocking. And Orion, if you want to say anything about Jefferson County's messaging, please feel free to use this platform.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if there's something that comes across there, because we have a few members that post, but something ever comes across there that you don't like let us know. I mean, we want to be transparent, and like, because what I'd like to have happen is we have so much involvement where we can get a vote on like what people want to post and what we should be posting, and if we do take a side or an opinion on something, like we need to vote on that first and make sure, you know, that it's acceptable and respectable, and, you know, really strengthens and portrays our values correctly. So yeah.
And the reason I'm speaking on this and not Ross is because I'm the public affairs director for Ross, so I do his messaging. We decided at the very beginning of the campaign that we were going to hold ourselves to a certain standard. We have freedom of speech, and we believe in freedom of speech, and we believe that freedom of speech means that we have the freedom to be as kind and as respectful as we want, and so we have decided to use that standard. And so that is the freedom that we have chosen. And so if people come to our page and they choose not to respect others, we have chosen not to allow that. And that is our choice. We do not allow edgelording, and we do not go in and edgelord. That is who our campaign is. But you know, if people want to edgelord in other campaigns, we don't go in and say anything about that. That is their freedom. But we believe that freedom of speech goes both ways, which means that you are free to be as respectful as you would like to be. And so that is the freedom that we have chosen. Ross?
Yeah.
Final
Yeah,
words?
that's very well put on that. Our goal as a campaign is to respect everybody and their viewpoints. And a lot of times people have different viewpoints, and basically the way we look at it is it's an opportunity to learn about different viewpoints and to figure out different ideas that they could have. So that's kind of how we handle it. We treat everybody with respect, and not everybody's gonna agree with me, but my goal is to represent the people of CD7. So, and that the only way to do that is to actually listen to what everybody has to say.